Chapter 31 The Jesus Trilogy, Book 2 Then There Were Two. The air was cool, the moon was half and was visible almost on a rhythmic basis due to some high streaky clouds. Dorian had gone to the town store in central Nazareth for some groceries. She didn't need much, but it was an excuse to get out of the house. She knew Barabbas would be there when she returned, so she dallied as long as she could. Their wedding was planned for December, but since Abel's death, their relationship had cooled to the point where they didn't even mention the word marriage. Travis had kissed her 3, maybe 4 times in the last month. She realized he was depressed, as anyone would be with the loss of a father. She had thought the world of Abel, but Barabbas was not coming out of whatever funk he was in, and she was more worried than ever. They had made many plans, and she didn't want to go through the embarrassment of changing them or canceling the wedding altogether. Yet she would do so if he would only give her some reassurance that she was loved by him. He hadn't used the L word since his father's death. It was tearing him up inside, yet she must make some alternate plans herself. She could accept his depression, but if it led to their breakup, she must get her emotional defenses in place. The hurt would be terrible, but she must handle it. She was rather a strong woman. She would survive. She so wanted it to work. She loved him so. She had a good job teaching in the Nazareth grade school, but she wanted him. There were other guys in town. She was beautiful and would have no trouble finding another man. She was medium height with dark eyes and long flowing hair. She would pile it on top of her pretty head when teaching, but would let it down at home. It reached to her waist. Barabbas loved to wrap himself in it when they made love. Tears came to her eyes when she thought of those now few and far between wonderful times. She was a very amorous woman and needed love every night. She so missed his love. It was over a month since they had loved. She had caught herself looking at other guys, even some of the high school students, but it was Barabbas she wanted, not anyone else. She'd racked her brain to try and think of ways to get him out of his apathetic state, but so far nothing had worked. Flour, food, kisses, she was beside herself. She realized women had all the power, but she was having trouble mobilizing hers. She had taken her time at the store, actually stopping and looking around until closing. The store manager finally asked her politely to select what she wanted as he had to close. She'd been daydreaming more than shopping, and when he spoke to her, she was somewhat startled. She quickly grabbed a few things, paid for them, and walked out of the store. She failed to take her change. The manager called her to give her the change, 29 pence, but she didn't hear. She was back in her daydream. Across the street, under the dim sign of the hotel, she caught a glimpse of a man leaning against a post, chewing on an apple. She looked ahead, then took another glance his way. He hadn't moved, just continued chewing on the apple. She followed the brightest path she could, going back and forth down the street from street lamp to street lamp. After a couple of blocks, she turned to look back. Her hair began to tingle. A cold sweat beaded on her forehead. She began to tremble, but she kept walking. She had seen the man by the street lamp, now walking behind her about a block back. As she looked back again, she saw that he was keeping pace with her, still about a block behind. She gradually picked up her pace. As she crossed the next cross intersection, she looked again. She only had 2 blocks to go. She sent up a little prayer, but this time she didn't see him anywhere behind her. Maybe he had just been going to his own house, or maybe it was just some coincidence. Her pulse, which had been racing, was now beginning to slow down. 1 more block to go. She kept up the more rapid pace. There was only 1 block left, and she would then be safely home. As she made the left turn onto Willow Way, she looked toward her house and froze dead in her tracks. There in the dim light, she made out the figure of the same man eating an apple. She wasn't sure if it was still the same apple. What does it matter, she thought. She wanted to run but could not move. She wanted to scream, but nothing came out. She just stood there frozen. Suddenly she got an even worse feeling in the pit of her stomach. Nausea was causing her stomach folds to contract, and soon the bitter taste of gastric acid would be in her mouth. The man now began walking slowly toward her. She still could not move, but as he came closer she noticed something unusual. The man was eating the apple with his left hand. Finally she said, "Who is it?" The voice said, "It's me, honey. Where'd you go off to late at night?" She didn't know whether to be mad, sad, or afraid, but she was relieved. She ran up to him and kissed him full on the lips. He immediately put his tongue in her mouth and both hands on her derriere. Her heart skipped a beat. The love fire was back in his kiss. They finally broke off the kiss, and he escorted her up to the door of her house. She opened it with a key, and they went inside. There was a dim lamp lit in the main room. That was the only light in the house. Here, Maze, the little golden terrier, ran up to her and began licking her legs. She was still arm in arm with Barabbas. They began to kiss lightly at first. She eased over to turn up the oil lamp, but he turned it back down. In the dim light, she stumbled and fell to the couch. She pulled him down with her. Maze let out a yelp. Dorian had pinched a little mud against the couch, but he quickly squirmed away. She had actually landed on top of her lover. They stared into each other's eyes. Though the room was very dark, they saw each other more clearly than they ever had before. "I missed you," Dorian whispered. "I love you," Barabbas said. He felt like he had not ever felt before. After expending all their emotional energy, they fell asleep in each other's arms. As the sun eased its weary head over the horizon, Dorian felt a wetness on her toes. There was a hint of a breeze coming from the open window. She snuggled tighter into Barabbas' arms to keep warm. As she slowly rose out of the deepest stages of sleep, her mind cleared just enough to realize she had never been happier. She opened one eye to stare at her fiancé. He still had a smile on his face. Nothing made her happier than to satisfy the one she loved. She had missed his kisses and his love so much. No one had ever satisfied her as he did, and she knew she did the same for him. She moved her face toward his and kissed him. She was surprised when he returned her kiss and opened his eyes to look at her. They had kissed again, still both spent. They just stared into each other's eyes, frozen in time. They were meant to be, and both knew it.